Thank you for coming. So let's get started. Today we'll talk about the new governance features in Data Cloud based on automated tagging using AI and policy management. As always, please make purchasing decisions based on software that is generally available today. I want to start off by thanking you, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. Thanks for the commitment and for and trust, and we could not do our jobs without you. Feedback is always welcome. We would appreciate hearing from you on the session, on your feedback, so we can improve and make any tweaks if needed. There is a small incentive in terms of a coffee card from Starbucks, and the Salesforce app has more details on how we can submit feedback. So I'm Srikant. I'm from the Data Cloud Product Management team working on data governance. I represent the entire data governance team. They've done a lot of work over the last year and a half to get here. I hope to do justice to their contributions today.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Upwan. I lead our governance practice for Data Cloud. And in addition to tagging, there's a number of other capabilities around lineage, policy, and other things that we're working on. We have some presentations tomorrow that we'll kind of share at the end. But this is focused on the tagging piece that enables a lot of use cases, and we'll kind of go from there. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. So you heard about our vision for Agentforce. It's an only AI system that brings together humans, agents, and data, and CRM together into one trusted platform. But like any AI system, an agent can only work. An agent cannot work without the right data. And that's why Data Cloud is at the forefront of our new strategy to make the right data available at the right time to the right person or agent. It unifies customer data across several touch points, allows you to take action on data through AI, analytics, and automation, while also ensuring data governance and security. Now, how it works, each of these pillars could be a separate presentation by itself. I'm just going to highlight a few features. So Data Cloud is an extremely powerful platform. It really resonates with our customers with the ability to connect to any data via zero copy, where you actually share data without actually moving it, and also providing consistency by mapping the various data streams where harmonization to Data Cloud's unified model, and resolve identities, unify profiles to create a single customer identity, and then activating the data on Marketing Cloud or Google or any other platforms. And as you do that, data governance becomes very important, because now not only are we getting data from multiple sources, whether it's zero copy or ingestion, we're also taking it to other places as well. So that's why we added a new layer to the existing connect, harmonize, and activate pillar. It's the data governance pillar to emphasize that governance is one of the key pillars in Data Cloud. One of the main concepts in data governance is that you don't have to think of tagging, you don't have to think of structured and unstructured data differently. When we define policies, we can define it using the same natural language interface that you use to define structured and unstructured data. You can use objects, fields, process definitions, and also tags that give you additional flexibility to define these policies. So you don't have to define these policies and a second time for structured and unstructured data. Also really important is the notion of consistency and scale. So if you think about a typical Data Cloud setup, a customer has a lot of data that may be coming in from an S3 Amazon source. That's then mapped to a DLO, and then that's mapped to a DMO, and there are many downstream objects like calculated insights, segments, process definitions, and so on. So the question here is, how do you ensure that the same policy that is applied on the DLO is applied consistently across the entire data stream, across the entire downstream, and doing this all at a scale without requiring manual intervention. This is where the notion of tag propagation comes in. So it's the idea that once a tag has been applied at the source, for example, the DLO, the tag can then be propagated downstream to all the downstream activities, and thus ensuring that consistency and scale, and also making sure that there's no gap in policy enforcement.
So Shrikant, if I may add a couple of things to what Shrikant mentioned in this slide. Number one is that once you define these tags and enable them with policies, it applies to every surface area, whether you're doing analytics that's built on top of Data Cloud, or you're doing Agentforce, or you're doing segmentation, activation, and so on. So that's really the power of using tagging that allows you to propagate that to all downstream objects or process definitions that ensures consistency. And take the example of a tag that might have a label like HIPAA, and you want to make sure that we treat that data with the level of sensitivity that's needed to comply with HIPAA regulations. Now, it's actually working really well with all the objects that are already in the system, but if a new object comes in, and I want to kind of tag that as HIPAA, I don't have to go make any changes to the policies because it automatically applies because I've already defined those policies with the HIPAA annotation or the label, and it automatically kind of applies and works. And Shrikant's going to show some examples in the demo, but that's one of the key benefits of this, where when you look at a big data system, you want to ensure consistency. You want to ensure that every time something new comes in, you're not redoing the system, or you don't have to go redefine your policies as an admin. It just works.
Yeah. Thank you, Pan. So this is a quick overview of the portfolio slide. So the two pillars we think about are governance and security. So AI tagging and classification is the fundamental bedrock on which the governance portfolio is built on. It automates the labeling and organization of data using AI recommended tags. And policies are built on this. They allow you the capability author, enforce, and manage access. And you can also have multi-purpose policies as well. We're starting off with access policies. And then we have the notion of masking policy. This is a runtime capability to redact sensitive information from the user. For example, when they try and query an object, if they don't have the necessary permissions on those, if the user has, if it's sensitive data, we can turn on masking selective masking for that object, so the user actually does not see the actual contents and they are redacted. Now, data spaces is used to segregate data, metadata, and processes by brand, business user, business unit, and region. Data spaces is not new. It's been around for quite some time. But the reason we bring it to the foreground here is that all our policies and everything are built on top of the existing data spaces. So users get access to Data Cloud via permission sets. And permission sets, within permission sets, users can be configured to access one or more data spaces. And then in the confines of a data space is when we can go and define these access-based policies. The data space is actually end-to-end secure, meaning that you can ingest the data one time and into a data lake object, and then it can be projected onto multiple data spaces. You don't have to ingest it multiple times. And then we have, on the security side, very briefly, we have platform encryption, where customers can leverage encryption keys that Salesforce creates using AWS, the key management system. The data at rest is encrypted, and customers can also manage their own encryption keys. Very quickly about Private Connect. So many customers who are in sensitive or highly regulated industries, they do not allow direct access to their data from the external internet, and by definition, they will even Data Cloud cannot access the data. So hence the need for Private Connect, where we establish a private data connection between Data Cloud and data sources. All right, so let's talk about AI tagging and classification. So, as we talked about earlier, one of the key challenges in data governance is the ability to manage large amounts of data and metadata with tens of thousands of objects and many billions of records. We want to simplify data management and governance by automating the tagging and classification using AI. We want to let AI do the heavy-duty job of tagging the objects as HIPAA, PII, and so on. Just to give you some context, tags are metadata that you can assign to an object. Tags belong in a taxonomy. A taxonomy is just a hierarchical collection of tags. We provide out-of-the-box tags, and also users can also customize these tags if needed, depending upon their industry. That's what the animation shows here. The taxonomy is used in the prompt generation to the LLM to generate the tags. This means the output of the tags is confined to the corpus of tags that we define. Tags that are generated from the LLM are basically just a suggestion. They are not applied until the user until the admin has approved the tag. So there is a workflow there. And then we have the notion of tag propagation. This is how you ensure that data is governed consistently for consistency and scale, making sure that the tags are propagated to all downstream objects, and you don't have to do it manually. And the key goal here is to ensure that policies are enforced at scale. So so let's dive into the key components here. So this slide talks a little bit more, give you some more context. So you have the object names like first name and last name, and these are tagged as PII. Other fields can be tagged similarly depending upon the data they hold. Now every tag has a classification. Think of classification as tags on tags, and this ensures that this ensures consistent treatment. For example, you can have a policy that masks sensitive data. So all data that is tagged as sensitive will be treated in the same way, and it can then be masked. And again, all of this is based in the context of the existing perm sets and the existing data spaces that we talked about earlier. Yeah, next we'll talk about policy. Next, we'll talk about policy-based governance. Now that you've seen how the basic infrastructure works, the authoring the policy is fairly simple. It's based on attributes, on attribute-based access control. And here we refer to attributes as, we refer to attributes of the resource as talking about its tags and classification, and which is also what the animation is showing. We have policies can be enforced at the object, at the field, and also at the record level, and then the beauty of this policy is that it is centrally managed, and like Upan was saying earlier, once you define a policy, that policy will scale regardless of the number of objects, of new objects that have been created. As long as these objects are being tagged appropriately, the policy will kick in and will come under the policy umbrella.
So Shrikant, I just want to add a couple of things to what Shrikant mentioned about policy-based governance. So our presentation is focused on tags, but if you are an admin and you actually have been managing security in your environment by using object or field names, we still give you that level of flexibility. Tagging just allows you another layer so that you don't have to remember all those object and field names. Sometimes it's not well defined and so on. It gives you flexibility to say that this is PII, this is healthcare sensitive information, and so on. So anything that's labeled in that way automatically applies to all objects, but you can still continue to use policies that you might have, like you've defined something on an object or a field and so on, that still continues to work. That doesn't go away.
Thanks, Upan. Yeah, so the first policy that we have is the access-based policy. So the analogy we often use is think of permissions via data spaces as giving you access to the lobby of a building. With attribute-based access control, you can define that you can define which apartments somebody can enter, for example. And with field-level policies, you can also define which rooms in those apartments people can enter. And then with row-level security, you can also enforce which floors in the building somebody can access. So think of that analogy as we go through this. So that's the fine-grained policy that we have. We are starting with access-based policies, and more near-term is the masking policy that I talked about earlier, and coming down and in terms of the future, you can also have data retention policies that says do not retain data more than a certain number of time based on the tags. So we see there are lots of different use cases we will be working on based on the annotation framework that powers the existing policy framework. So now we'll get into two quick demos. We have 5 minutes remaining. The first demo is basically showing just a design time concept. It's basically from the admin point of view. The admin configures the tags and sets up policies. So this is in the context of the Data Cloud data governance tab. The admin is now setting off the tagging using the taxonomies that are provided, and then generating the prompt using this.
Good morning, Agent users.
The next step then is to create a policy. So at the policy, basically, we have policies, like I said earlier, that basically can control, can protect an object, field, or a record, and it also, so you can have an allow policy or a deny policy, and this applies to the users. So here we're saying anybody who has in the perm set access all PII is able to access this particular information. We also have masking policies here, and it's a similar concept as you saw earlier. We define a masking policy and say based on certain classification, we want to take some action like redaction or nullification, and that's the policy that is being set up here.
Yeah. So Shrikant, I just want to add a couple of points here.
Sure.
You've kind of been hearing a lot about agents and Agentforce. And everything that we've described so far applies both to human and digital agents. So you don't have to go do anything differently once you define these policies, as long as the role and the agent is described with the same policy predicates, it actually just works. You don't have to do anything differently. So if a digital agent is working and giving access to information, you can actually limit access in the same way as you would do it for a human agent. And that's kind of the power of what this enables through the combination of tagging and policy. And Shrikant's going to walk through one more demo that shows different personas and how that story comes together.
Yeah, here we're looking at the runtime access. So we have defined access. So we have defined access for users, and we also tag the data. Here we're showing how the user has access to the object level, to the objects, and we have tagged this object as PII, and the object in question is the contact point address DMO. There are a number of other objects that we have tagged as well. The next step is to go and then create a policy that, in this case, it's a deny access policy. We want to deny access to objects that are tagged personal data PII to users who do not have this particular permission set. So which is the access high confidential object, and in the permission sets, we assign users to it. So in this case, we can see we've assigned Vivek to this permission set, and nobody else. So we'll see how the access pattern looks like here. So Vivek is able to log in, and when he logs in, he's able to see the contact point address because he has the access to this, and his access has been enabled, and he has the PII tag on it. We also created a related list of addresses that he now has access to. On the other hand, when we switch to Varun does not have access to the contact point address, and he does not see the DMO at all, nor does he see the related list that was created for addresses. The next use case we'll look at is how can we restrict access to a particular field. In this case, Vivek has access, but Samay does not have access, and we've tagged the address one field with the PII tag, and so we can see how the access will look like. And in the policy in the policy builder in the policy, we have created a policy that denies access to these fields to users who do not have the right permission set. The field here is the personal data.pii, and the permission set is access confidential field. And in the permission sets, again, we have enabled access using the permission sets. And when we switch personas, we will show you the case where the user case, this does not work. We know it works for Vivek, so when Samay logs in, you can see that he does not have access to address line 1 because it is marked as PII, and nor does he have access to in the related list as well. The last one we'll show you is the record access, where we limit access to users to only certain rows of the record based on the policy, based on their permission set. In this case, we want to limit access to the sales cart orders, limit orders to records that are above a certain value, and that's the policy that we are defining. We're saying limit access to orders that are greater than a certain amount to users who do not have this permission. And to show this information, we'll go look at Tableau. And this is what Upon was saying earlier. The access is restricted not just in Data Cloud, but any access to data from outside is also restricted. This is the first user who does not have access to the entire, all the rows, can only see the rows, the price values that is 50 and below. And then when the other user logs in, Vivek, who has full access, he's now able to see the entire data. Yeah, so that's all I had. So there's lots of more information that I leave the screen up here. There's lots of more information for you to get started. And so yeah, we also have a demo booth in the demo grounds, so please come and see us. Happy to answer more questions as well.